Hello, and welcome to the Lady Stairs Knits podcast. I'm Sarah, and I'm really excited to tell you what I've been working on for the past 3 or so weeks. We should start with what I'm wearing, which I'm so excited about. I think it's amazing. It is the Roosty tank by Ella Gordon. This pattern was in the Shetland Wool Week annual for last year, 2021. This year's Shetland Wool Week has come out, and Ella Gordon's design for this year is a dog coat. It's really cute. I don't have a dog, but maybe I would make it for a friend's dog. Possibly. Sort of unlikely. Anyway, I saw this pattern in January and I just loved it. So I bought the annual. If you've seen my podcast before, you've definitely seen this tank. It's been a long process, but I feel like it's turned out perfectly. I'll show you. Here's what it looks like. It's a bottom-up tank. The very bottom is twisted rib, and then you knit the colorwork up to the armpits, then you cast on steek stitches for the arms, and then you do another steek for the neck. My gauge was really different from what the gauge is in the pattern, which I found out after I had knit all of the ribbing for the first time. Even though I'd done a gauge swatch, I didn't measure it, which was really stupid. So I ended up making the second smallest size, which according to my gauge swatch would give me a 42-inch circumference. There's no shaping, so it's sort of the whole thing is 42 inches. I think that I would have been making the 5th size to get that, which gives me about 2 inches of positive ease. So as a result of my gauge being much different, my row gauge was also way different. So I had to make a few adjustments to the pattern just so that it wasn't really long. Because if you look at it, it's like the perfect length for a cropped tank. I would not want this to be any longer, especially if it doesn't have shaping in it. I think that there's 1.5 repeats. This is a repeat. So there's 1.5 before the underarms. And that meets the distance required in the schematic. So I knew that I would have to make some changes to the rate of decreases for the armholes, because it would be much too long in the arm if I didn't change it, if that makes sense. Because the pattern has it over like 2 repeats, but 2 repeats would have been like this far on me. So I did some very minor, only gauge related alterations to the pattern. I knit the neck as it was intended. I picked up, the pattern said to pick up 2 out of 3 stitches for the armbands, and I did that, but then it was really bunched up. So I ripped it out and at first I ripped it out and then knit it again and forgot to do twisted rib. Then I ripped that out and did it again, with 3 of every 4 stitches being picked up. And I think that they're still a little bit bunched, but I actually think that the reason that it sort of is curling under is because it's a little bit big in the shoulder. I have quite a large bust in proportion to my shoulders, so I think, and I didn't want it to be negative ease because it's ferile. So, but I think in the future I would alter it, maybe to take like 2 inches off of the outside of each shoulder, so that it doesn't move around. I say that, but I'm really happy with it. I think it turned out really beautifully. I bought this shirt specifically to go under it with the puffy sleeves. And I love the colors. I just love everything about it. I wore it yesterday over a long sleeve t-shirt, and it's about 7 degrees Celsius here. So it's starting to get cold, and I was just the perfect temperature. I have like a really thin raincoat. I was just the perfect temperature. It was amazing. I love it. Also, vests are so trendy right now, and I really feel like I get to be involved in the trend in a fun way, even though it took me months and months and months to make, so it's not really like a trendy decision. But it's fun to feel like very cool. Probably gonna wear it loads. I always sort of thought if your body's cold, aren't your arms cold as well? So wouldn't you want to wear a full jumper instead of just a vest? But I think that maybe it's not so good for people who run cold. Maybe it's good for people like me who run warm, because none of me is ever really cold. So, but if I go outside in like a t-shirt and my really thin rain jacket when it's the weather is today, I would be cold, if that makes sense. It's been a while since I've recorded a video. But anyway, the vest is perfect. I love it. I really want to make another one. I have an idea for an extremely different effect, but very similar actual construction for a vest. And I just think it goes so well. It goes well with everything that I own. And I'm gonna wear it so much, and I'm so excited to have it done. It's one of those projects that's been on my mind and on my needles for months, so I really know that I love it. It's not like a spur of the moment thing. So that is my Roosty tank, the end of an era on my podcast. And I hope that you think it's good too. And I think it's really good. I have another really exciting thing to tell you about. And it is a test knit that I did for Teti. It was a test knit that I did for Teti's Knit Garden is her Instagram name. I'm not sure what her last name is, but it was for LAINE's 52 Weeks of Easy Knits. And I knit this in January. It was my first project of the year. I got this really cryptic email in the newsletter saying like, do you want to do a test knit? It's very secretive. I can't tell you anything about it before you agree. And I was intrigued. So I signed up for the test knit, and I was sent this pattern in January, and this is the pattern. I will show you. That's the back. In the book, so I don't know if I said, it's in the LAINE 52 Weeks of Easy Knits book, and it's Funky Turtle in the book. So I finished this at the very beginning of February. It took me like 5 solid weeks to knit, and I have worn it so much since then. I've worn it, I'm not exaggerating, maybe 2 out of 3 days where it wasn't really hot. I have been wearing this. This is my go-to jumper, and I could never show it because I wasn't allowed to because it was so secretive. So it's knit with New Lanark Mills DK weight, which is a woolen spun yarn. So the fibers are all not in line, which is a really airy and light fabric, kind of like Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, if you've used that, but way cheaper. And the colors are, Autumn is this beautiful orangey color which is like a dyed in the wool with some green and yellow in it too. Peat is this gray, which is just so beautiful. Tiger is this barber pole coral and like a natural white with some flecks of blue in it. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see. And then the black is natural black. And I made a mistake in the color work here, but it's right on the sleeves. And I realized when I'd like finished the body and I really didn't want to go back. So I did a split hem. The color work is also at the bottom. Stand up, maybe that will give you a better view. This is just one of the best things I've ever made. And I've been wearing it for 10 months now, so it has been well tried. It starts with this long twisted rib section, which actually begins quite turtlenecky but stretches out, because at the end of it you do a knit two together yarn over, which you can't really see in my version, but there are other versions that you can see it in really well that use a bit less woolly wool. So the turtleneck really stretches out. As you can see, it's like not really a turtleneck anymore. And then there's a short panel of double knitting, which you can't really see in mine because it's in the barber pulled wool, but it's a bit thicker. And then you have these really interesting little details in the yoke going across, which are sort of similar to the technique used in the ranunculus for the stitch embellishment that has the sort of going across stitch, if that makes sense. Then there's a wee bit of color work, and I did I did a split hem, and I did a tubular bind off, but I don't really know how much of a difference that actually makes. So that is my funky turtle. It was kind of exciting to do a test knit for Teti / LAINE, but it was also kind of weird because I knit this in January, finished at the very beginning of February, and then it was radio silence for until about a month ago. And I had sent this really detailed email with my yardage usages and my thoughts on the pattern and the layout, because some of the color work was laid out like kind of strangely. There was a chart, but then for the sleeve color work, it was written out in a really confusing way, and I suggested that maybe she just say refer to the chart. So I sent pictures and everything, but then I didn't hear anything back. And also there was no information from LAINE that there was a 52 weeks of easy knits for months after I'd finished the test knit, and I wasn't supposed to show it on like Instagram or YouTube, but so it was a little bit weird, just as like a very secretive thing, but I was not in the loop at all. Anyway, now the book is out. It's great. I think that there's a lot of really cute patterns in it. I would make this again. It's kind of big, which I love for this, but I would definitely make one with a bit less. I think this has 10 inches of positive ease, so I might make one with a little bit less positive ease. And I definitely want to use this yarn again in a jumper like this, because it's had time to kind of meld together, and I'm especially enamored with this color. It's just so beautiful. The barber pull yarn is actually 10% silk, so they're all from, did I say this? They're all from the New Lanark mill in their DK. And so this is a 10% silk content. I don't really think that you can feel the difference. It's a bit more drapey. I will also say that I don't think that the color blocking that I've chosen is the most flattering choice of color placement, but I really don't care. But if you are making this, and that is something that would bother you, don't put your loudest color in the section that's right over your middle, maybe. Unless to you flattering would be drawing attention to your middle, which is possible. I love this. I can't say it enough. I've worn it so much. And it's exciting that the book is out now. And I love seeing all of the other test knitters for this pattern's projects, and I wonder if anyone else who's made it has loved it as much as I have. I don't know. The yarn is also held up really, really well. There's a teeny bit of pilling, but otherwise, you know, aces. I have one more finished object, and it is a pair of socks. They're a little bit damp because I just washed them, but here are my self-striping nomadic fiber socks. The color is Green Thumb, which used to be Gillyweed, and it's in the tweed base. And I just did a plain sock, not plain I guess because it's ribbed, but just a ribbed sock with a heel flap and gusset, and I didn't do the rib on the bottom of the foot. I did make these kind of long. I originally thought, like in the foot, I originally thought that I would give them to my boyfriend, but then I tried them on and they actually fit me fine, so I kept them. But These socks are a little bit weird. I've had some issues with the yarn in that I have had this allergic reaction to, I think, what must be the dye that's used in this yarn. This has happened to me before with Neighborhood Fiber Co. Studio sock. I haven't tried it since they sort of changed the line to be organic, and I haven't tried it since then, but I am quite allergic to the dye that they used to use, and this was a similar experience. I don't think that you would be able to see, but on my ring finger, sort of the skin got all weird and peely and thin, and then sort of started to come off, and it was really sore. And I also found that, you know that horrible thing that happens when it feels like if you like accidentally get something under your fingernail and it feels like your nail is separated a little bit? That happened like almost every night that I worked on these, which is why it took me about 2 years to finish them. So it's just very strange, and I don't know if... I've never heard anyone else say that this has happened to them, and I do have very sensitive skin, so it could just be me. But if you have sensitive skin, and if you have had reactions like that to other yarns, I would maybe not buy this yarn. Although I do think that the dyer makes really great colorways, and I am knitting with the rest of the ball and just like trying to muscle through it. I don't want to rag on these socks, but I wore them and they felt like weirdly abrasive on the bottom of my feet in a way that has never happened to me before. So I'm hoping that that was maybe an after effect of the dye, and now that I've washed them, they'll be a little bit better. Maybe it was the neps. That's possible, or maybe it was the nylon content. I don't know. Anyway, these socks do fit me beautifully. Here, let me see if I can. They fit really, really nicely, and I love the color. And I started these before I started doing my slipknot cast on, so I used a twisted German cast on for these. And I'm really glad that they're done. I hope that they soften up a little bit, or that they have softened up a little bit in this wash. So that's my final finished object. Now I will show you some works in progress, beginning with a pretty similar one to what you have just seen. Okay, here's the yarn. I'm making just a plain pair of socks. It's gonna just be a plain sock tube. I did knit the toe, like a toe up, just so that I didn't have to do a provisional cast on and then knit the toe later. I thought, may as well start it with the toe. I take this on the train with me unless my fingers are feeling too allergic, and then I take something else. Why does anyone else, like, I feel like I get so committed to the yarn that I buy that even if it would make sense to just give it to a friend or not use it, because let's be honest, I probably have like 10 skeins of sock yarn and I could knit on any of the other ones. I just feel like I have to finish this. So basically, over the next however long it takes me, when it's comfortable, I will just be knitting on this plain sock tube, and then I'll cut in afterthought heel, and I'll add the tops, the cuffs, and I think that it's fine if one toe is toe up and one toe is top down. I don't really care. I think that would be the same. I didn't want to cast on a cuff and then have the other cuff be a cast off, because I don't know a cast off that's similar to the slip knot cast off, and that's the only one I want to do. Although I guess I won't be able to do that for these socks anyway. Well, that's something to think about. Anyway, I spend a lot of time on the train because I go to university in Glasgow, but I live in Edinburgh, and on the way to Glasgow, I'm normally doing work for school or readings, but on the way back, I often feel really brain fried, so I like to knit, or I'll play a mindless game on my phone and listen to an audiobook or something. So I do I mean, this is like 2 days of knitting, so I've been kind of flying through this. And I'd love to finish up this yarn because I do think it's really neat, and I would maybe give these to my gran. I made her another pair of socks that I haven't given her yet, but I'm going to visit her at the end of November. So maybe I will do that. Oh, I thought that I would show you what my pressed flower shawl looks like after blocking because it grew a ton. I blocked it on my parents' bed while they were away. They wouldn't be very happy if they knew that I had done that because they're worried that blocking things will stain. They don't want me to block things anywhere in their house. But they were away and I had a huge shawl, so I blocked it on their bed because it was the largest bed in the house. And it's fine. There was no dye on it. And they'll never know as long as we keep it a secret between all of us. And they never watch this. So here it is. It grew a lot. Oh, there's a little pink fuzzy. Wow, I really have like a color scheme going on here with the green and the orange. This is extremely warm. I think it will be great when it gets really cold, but it's just so warm that it's not, I can't wait at all at this time of year. The other day, I was in a tank top in my flat with the heating off, and I had this shawl on and I was fine. And it's like less than 10 degrees outside. So it's extremely warm. It's really light. I love the texture of it, especially after blocking. There were a couple areas when I had stretched it out that looked a little scarily thin, which I reinforced with great difficulty. I really like this. Actually, since I made this, I've seen like 3 other shawls using Viravan, like pressed flower shawls using Viravan. And I kind of feel like everyone's copying me. But I don't think that that's the case because I don't think anyone would have seen mine. And you know how Nudidin like reposts people's pictures? They never repost mine, which is okay. But that's how I know. I don't think that they're copying me. But I kind of feel like, I did it first. It's sort of like I made the Scout shawl and I finished it earlier this year. And I was one of the maybe first like 30 people to cast it on. Definitely not one of the first 30 people to finish it though. But I saw, there was like no one else who had done a colorway that was the same as mine. And then I saw a yarn shop selling a colorway for the Scout shawl that was really similar to mine. And I thought, well, I might have inspired some people. It's quite exciting. Anyway, the pressed flower shawl got really big. And I still really like it. I'm not interested in knitting the cardigan. I'm sort of interested in knitting the hat though. I just have had enough of this for now. And I love it. And I'm excited that it's done. And it's dry. I don't have a scale with me, but maybe when I get a scale, I will weigh all of the things I've made because I like to know, but I can't imagine that this is more than 300 grams. And it's enormous. My next work in progress is it's an old one. Not old, but it's one that I started over the summer. And I ran out of one of the colors of yarn. And it's a really easy yarn to get hold of in Scotland. Actually, it's one of the colors that was in my Funky Turtle pullover that I used the leftovers of. But it's quite difficult to get in the States. It would have cost like $20 to ship this, what at the time was a 3 pounds 50 ball of yarn. So I thought I'll just put it on hold. I'll knit it when I get to Scotland. So that's what's happened. And now that I've finished my Roosty tank top, I have started working on this again. And it is the Treysta by Jennifer Steingass. And it's on quite a short needle. But I'm knitting this with Nudidin held double and a ball of New Lanark natural black, which is a black that has some like white fibers in it. The colors of the Nudidin are Skostra is the green, I think Talbark is the pinky brown, and then the white and the gray were both Lucky Charm, just extras. I don't know what they were. So since my gauge is much larger than the gauge in the pattern, because I'm knitting it with size 6mm needles, I am going to split for the sleeves in the next row. It's about 9 inches, the yoke is about 9 inches deep, so I think that that will be more than enough. I really don't want another deep yoked jumper. I only picked this up to work on again yesterday. And I'll be honest, I'm not enjoying working with Nujadin right now. It's just like, working with this was so relaxing, and it's difficult to not be able to put any tension on the yarn. So yeah, I'm excited to have this finished once it's finished, and I think that it will knit up really quickly from here on out, especially after I split for the sleeves. But I'm not really enjoying the process at the moment. I do like the turtleneck. I do have a little bit more of color work yet to go. So I've moved the sleeve separation up maybe 15, 20 rows. But I think that that'll be good. I really like the project. I did a whole like Photoshop thing to see what it would look like with the colors in different places. So I love the way that the colors are turning out. And I guess that's about all I have to say on this. I added the turtleneck because originally it was the roll neck that's in all of, maybe not all, but it's in a vast majority of Jennifer Steingass's patterns. And I wanted it to be a bit cozier. And I'm using this project bag, which I got when I made an order from Lucy and Yak. They sometimes ship it in these like silk or satin drawstring bags, which has been great for me to keep my projects in. I have one thing left to show you, which is my Twist and Turns shawl, which I am not going to be continuing working on. I'm really not enjoying the knit. I got so behind because it was during a really stressful period at university that the clues were coming out. It was the midterms. So I got really behind. I don't love the way that the shawl looks. I think if I had kept up, I would have liked the end result, if that makes sense. But where I am, halfway through clue 1 still, I don't like the finished result enough to knit a whole shawl knowing that it will look like that. Although I've loved seeing people add tassels to theirs. And I really like the Hibernate shawl, so I'm considering knitting that with the yarn that I have. Although the yarn that I have for the Mystery Knit Along, I love all of them so much that I would happily knit them into other stuff. So it's not like, oh, what am I gonna do with this yarn? It's more like, do I want to knit another shawl right now, I guess is the main question. But I do love the yarn, so maybe I want to use it together. I don't know. I'll show you what I've got. I've done about half of clue 1. So if you want, look on the screen for the time you should skip to. When I pulled this off the needle, because I needed my cable for something else, I put it partially onto a cord, but then it just didn't work and it all slipped off. So I'm gonna take the cord off. My cat loves these. Here he comes. Okay. So this is what mine looks like so far. I love the colors together. I think they're gorgeous. I love the textures. It's so soft. And I think that all of those features, all of those attributes of the yarn I love so much about this, I could put into any other pattern. I was really excited for the Mystery Knit Along. I just felt really behind this year. A bit of a nice difference because last year I was really unwell during the Mystery Knit Along, and it was sort of the only thing that I was excited about that was going on. so it was a real escape for me. And then the year before, I had just discovered the Stephen West mystery knit-alongs, and it was a scary time for COVID, although I wouldn't say it stopped being a scary time for COVID even now, but especially the difference from this year to last year, it feels kind of unbelievable that I'm actually like busy and doing other stuff and was able to fall behind because I have more going on. So I feel quite at peace with this, and I kind of want to make like a jumper that's just striped. That's these two striped. It definitely feels like funky in a way that I really enjoy. I think that Kat from Heather and Hops, I can't be the only one who thought her name was Heather for like a year. Anyway, Kat from Heather and Hops released this emo-inspired stripy drop shoulder jumper, and I don't think that I would make that because it's not really me, there's the drop shoulder, but I think that I might make something like similarly stripy mohair and not mohair with like maybe like a raglan or a satin sleeve or something with this. It feels like it's something a children's performer would wear in a cool way. So it's a beautiful fabric and I want to wear it. So yeah, maybe you'll see it next time. That is the end of my twist and turn saga. I love the hybrid knit-along pattern. I just don't know if I need to knit another shawl. I just finished the pressed flowers. I'm probably going to participate in the mystery knit-along next year. So how many shawls does a person really need? Not sure. I want to talk about vicarious knitting, and my little cats come to visit. I want to talk about vicarious knitting, knitting plans. Did any of you watch Caroline, aka Dunder Knit, when she was making videos? I loved her videos. She stopped, I think, in 2020. I have two things. Hello. I have two things that I'm really wanting to cast on. The first is a drop shoulder V-neck. I'm not sure what pattern, but there's a couple of patterns that I'm interested in. I guess it could also be a raglan. I have this yarn, which I've had for a while. I got it for Hanukkah from my parents in 2020, and it is 3-ply. In each of the 3 plies, each is a different color of a natural color from a really local farm. So each is a natural color from a really local farmer. And I have about 1,500 meters of this. It's a DK weight, so I have loads. And I've been excited to knit with this from the moment I got it, and it's time. So I want to do a V-neck because I don't have any V-necks, and it's a DK weight, so I think it will produce a really similar fabric to my funky turtle jumper. I keep motioning over there because that's where I put my funky turtle. Sorry, my cat's climbing around, so you might be able to hear him. Yeah, I've been excited about this for a really long time, so I think I might cast that on if I can get a little bit of progress made on my Treysta. And the other project that I really want to cast on is another ranunculus. I've made one in cotton, which I think I was wearing for my last episode. And it's using, the one that I want to cast on is using Anfield Angora Farm, which is a farm that is run by some family friends of mine, and it's just beautiful yarn that they've started doing some dyeing as well. And I made a cable knit cardigan jacket out of it at quite a tight gauge, and it's maybe the most exquisite thing I've ever made. And I really want to knit it at a much looser gauge because I think that the yarn would act really differently. So here's a swatch that I've made. I made this months ago. And this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A US size 10? I have no idea what that is in millimeters. I do the bumps in the US sizes because I don't have enough accuracy with the knot to be able to do like 0.5. So I'll measure this swatch, and I really want to cast that on because I think that that would be just gorgeous. And like a fuzzy white, light but warm shirt. Maybe I'll do a bit of like a bell sleeve. That would be just so pretty. So, and I did buy another skein of this at Perth Festival of Yarn with the intention of doing that. So those are the two things I really want to cast on, and I'm much more excited about that than I am about like the Hibernate, although I think that that's a really beautiful shawl. So I'll prioritize these and my works in progress that I've got going on currently. And it's not that I lost my knitting mojo at all. I just was so busy for about a week or two that I barely had any time to work on it, and I had to keep undoing and redoing the armbands of this. Worth it, but also now I'm like really ready to go and do some other stuff. So that, I don't have any acquisitions. I've been very good with not buying yarn, although I am going to go this weekend to Kathy's Knits, which is I think on Broaden Street in Edinburgh, and they have some, I think it's Jameson and Smith, or maybe some, like a brand like that, because for Hanukkah my boyfriend has asked me to mend the holes in one of his jumpers, and he asked me and I said I'll do that for you as a Hanukkah present because there's quite a few holes and I want to do a really good job. So I will devote a good amount of time to that, but I need to go and match the yarn and all that sort of thing. So I will buy yarn this week, which I'm sort of excited about. So that's everything I have to talk to you about. I hope that you've enjoyed my video. Hope that you like my vest. I love it. And I will see you again in about 2 weeks. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a good day.